Hi, this is Faxi Nadu, and welcome to another segment of the Modular Crash Course. Um, we've shown in the other videos almost all the, at least the main features that you can find in virtual analog type synths, and we've shown how to build synths that are really useful and functional for like producing techno and trance type of music. But there's actually two things that are commonly found on such synths that we didn't show. And one of them is very simple. It's just how to get a sub-oscillator sound, and I'll show that in this video. And the other thing is how to route filters so that you can have a serial or parallel routing. If you look at the viruses filters, the excess virus filters. So this is just a schematic of the virus. Well, I think I don't know from which virus, but it's similar to what I have on my virus A anyways. So as you notice, if you have two filters inside the synth, then many of them will give you the option of routing them in different ways. So if you look at serial 4 and serial 6, basically they are the same, except that filter 1 is on 12 dB here, and here it's on 24 dB. So that doesn't matter for us because we're going to be using a poly filter, and I'll show you in a minute. And we're not going to show the split because if you look right here, split is taking parts of the signal. The virus is taking OSC1 and the sub, and then OSC2 and the noise, and splitting them into filter 1 and filter 2. And you can do that, but when I show you how to do serial and parallel, this will be easy for you to do, and I just don't find it so useful. This hardwiring of sending this here with like OSC1 and the sub, like why is it hardwired this way? You could use it obviously in patches and whatnot, but I think the most useful is serial or parallel. This is the ones that you want. So let's look at serial 6 and parallel over here, because this is what we'll be modeling. So if you look at the serial connection, well, first of all, the signal is going from the source, from the mixed oscillator section, generator section, into the first filter. It's being saturated, and then it's going into the second filter, and then outside. So this is like, as you can see, a straightforward line. The connection would be here, into here, into here, into here. But if you look at the parallel routing, again, this is the generator section. So this will be our mixed OSC section. And it's going into the first filter, but then separately into the second filter. And then it's getting, at this point, it's getting mixed and outside. So you basically need an option to have, like, if you look at the first filter, in both cases, it's getting the signal directly from the mixed oscillator section. So this one is easy enough. In each instance, it's the same connection. But on the parallel routing, if you look at the second filter, then it's also getting it from the mixed oscillator section. While on the serial, it's getting it from this. So we're going to have a switch that is going to allow us to switch what is coming into the second filter. And this might be really simple, and some of you may already know. So I'm just going to show it simply. And I'm going to do it by, I loaded this up before the video. And I've loaded here just, there's an MVC and an output, but let's ignore that for a minute and look what I put over here. So what I have here is two filters, two poly filters. So there's many types. So one can be a low pass, one can be a high pass, comb filters, whatever. And the first filter, let's pretend that this would be our mixed oscillator section. So let's pretend we have oscillators, noise, input, whatever, going into this mixer. And then this is the signal. What is coming out of this mixer is the signal to be filtered. So like we've said, in both cases, the first filter is taking the signal directly from the mixed oscillators. So we just make this connection, and we've taken care of both situations. But the second filter, it needs the switch so that it can have a choice, right? So that if it goes into if we put the switch on the first position, then the sound coming out of here will be the mixed oscillator section, and then this would correspond to a parallel routing. And if you put the switch on the second position, then it will be getting the signal that is coming out of the first filter, and this would be our serial routing. So let's output it into the oscillator. and we've set that up. Now all we got to do is mix between the filters when it's coming out. So let's put it on the first position and talk about this one for a minute. So in this one, it is in parallel routing. So in parallel routing, all the way to the right would be outputting just the sound of filter number 2. All the way to the left would be outputting just the sound of filter number 1. And anything in the middle is a mix between the two. And if you put it on serial routing, then all the way to the right would be the mix, the serial signal between both of these filters. So it would be the signal that is coming out of filter 1, going into filter 2, and this is what you will hear at the output. If you put it all the way to the left, then filter 2 becomes sort of like on bypass, right? Because the signal is flowing from the mix section into the first filter, into this connection, and it's playing only this connection, just this. So, and the additional thing is that if you put it anywhere, while it's on serial, if you put it anywhere in the middle, you get kind of a unique routing here, where you would get the signal coming out of both filters to the right, and then mix in just the signal coming out of this. So this would be 2 would be like a wet of 1, right? Because 1 would be without the additional filter, and then 2 would be mixing in the additional filter. So it's quite flexible in this design. So let's keep this. We have a filter section, and it's kept right here. And I want to show you now how to get the sub-oscillator sound. So let's put it down here, and let's get in some oscillators. So let's take the Flexor NBL, doesn't matter which one, I just want to show the sub-oscillator. Connect the frequency directly just for this example. And we have our Sub-Osc going into the mixer section. And let's bring out a poly out so we can eventually listen to what we make. And connect that. Oh, sorry, we need a VCA. Obviously, I have not connected a VCA. Let's connect quickly a VCA. And that's, yeah. Now we can listen to our synth and make sure that it's working and doing what we want it to do. So. Connect the filters to the VCA. All of these you should already be familiar with. If you're not, then just go back to the other videos. Okay. So now it's connected. And now all I want to do is show you how to add a sub-oscillator sound. And with the Flexor pack, it's really easy. All you have to do is bring out a shaper, Osc shaper that is called a frequency divider. Now, if you click the A right here, this model generates a pulse signal. As the incoming signal crosses the zero crossing point while leading in a positive direction, the shaper toggles the output signal between 1 and -1. That means that what it basically does is it takes any signal and it checks as it crosses the 0 point on, like if you look at a wave editor, then it kind of uses the 0 crossings to analyze the sound. And the thing that comes out in the end is a pulse Osc sound that is 1 octave below the sound. So this is really useful, right? Because you can use any other Osc shape and get that classic sub-Osc sound to it. So if this would be our Sa-Osc, and this would be our sub-octave pulse. Get both of these in there. So that would be really easy to implement. So whenever you want to do, let's see, both of these things, for example, are available on the virus, both the sub-Osc circuit as well as the filter circuit. So if you want to clone something like that or get some of that sound, that specific sub-Osc pulse sound into your signal or that specific filter routing signal, then this is how you would do it. And let's have just a quick look at one more thing. Let's look at it over here. the scope has, as I've shown you, many types of envelopes. And I must admit, I got into an argument with a guy the other day online, and he mentioned that his VST plugin synths can do way more than modular. And I kind of told him that no way. I mean, modular can be any of your synths. All you need to do is clone them. So just to prove my point a little bit, I cloned Native Instruments Massive synth in modular, more or less. And it looks really, really hectic, but it's just, most of it is redundant connections because you have 3 oscillators in here and many, many modulators. So it looks really, really crazy. But as you can see, like half the connections are going just feeding off the gate. And many of the stuff is just redundant. If I take away the routing, I can just show you quickly what I've done because just it's a little bit interesting. On the Massive, they have wavetable oscillators. And I've decided just for our synth to be a little bit different to use wave draw oscillators. And this is really cool and unique. You can directly draw your OSCs into the drawer. Another thing that we've done here is we've used the ability to, in modular, have very, very flexible routing. So on the Massive itself, there is a modulation OSC, and it will allow you to choose different things that you can do to one of the OSCs, like FM or OSC sync and stuff like that. And we, in our example, just to kind of prove that modular is really flexible, we've mixed it differently, and our modulation OSC is much flexible, and it can actually you don't have to sacrifice it to one modulation of one of the OSCs. You can FM all of them. You can sync all of them. You can sync them to each other, and you can do, it's basically the same stuff that Massive does, but with far more flexible routing and many more options that are at your fingertips quickly. The rest of the stuff is also in here, including the keyboard tracking curves for the filters, and including all the interpolated and non-interpolated sequencers and everything. The one thing I didn't put on this synth, and one of the reasons I opened it because I want to show you on our other patch, is over here I've put 4 mod envelopes. And if you look at the Massive, the mod envelopes on the Massive are multi-segment envelopes and not just regular ADSR envelopes. So I just want to show you that in this modular and in many other modulars, to be frank, this is also available. And in scope, there are also multi-segment envelope sections in Flexor, and there's also one from Sonic Core, and this would be it. And there are 2 versions of it, the A and the B. And if you look at the A, for example, this one right here, then you can just set different points on it, and you can actually set up to 128 points on this envelope. And to be perfectly frank, I mean, it's really cool, but honestly, I don't really need 128 points, even when I'm doing something really crazy. Prefer to use something like this. If you look at the interpolated control sequencer, it is really similar to a multi-segment envelope, right? Because it's just the same. I mean, you're drawing a curve. The difference is you have 16 curves instead of the like 128 pretty much infinite curves, right, on the multi-segment, because you will be really hard to get to 128. Another thing that is different about the multi-segments is that you can loop certain sections of the envelope. Like you can start like this, reach this area, and loop it, let's say 10 times. You tell it how many times to loop, and then continue. But again, I kind of like using the interpolated control sequencer when I need that kind of stuff. It's much more useful and much more controllable and much more easier to understand and to work with for me. So these are the 2 things, 2 or 3 things that I wanted to show you in this video to kind of complete the picture of how to make a virtual analog synth with this or with any other modular. And in the next videos, we will be kind of getting into more like ambient sort of stuff. So stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next one.